streetwear is just not even a thing anymore. It should not even ever be used. It's dead. It's a new thing. To say, oh, streetwear is luxury and this and that, it just is what it is now.
Stüssy. Next to Supreme, Stüssy has one of the most recognizable logos in streetwear. Not to mention, it's widely considered as the grandfather of the streetwear genre itself. From surfboards to t-shirts and a wider range of other apparel, Stüssy has experienced a number of peaks and valleys through the years. And over all these years, they've managed to remain relevant. But how did they do it? How can a streetwear brand that started way back in the 70s still remain popular today? In a genre no less where brands are here today and gone tomorrow. Well, let's find out. I'm Nate the Great from TakeFlight214.com, and this is the history, the rise and fall and rise again of Stüssy. Stüssy founder Sean Stüssy grew up a poster boy of the California surf lifestyle. From the young age of 13, he was known for shaping surfboards. And making his official leap into business in 1979, he started his own surfboard business. He began signing off on all of his creations with the now iconic graffiti-style logo, which he ripped off from his uncle's handwriting. But little did he nor his uncle know, it would eventually become one of the most famous logos in the world, acting as a spark for a larger movement in years ahead. Grinding it out, it wasn't until 1982 that he made his introduction into clothing. Sean's surfboard company was set to make an appearance at the Action Sports Retailer trade show. He also brought along a couple of black screen printed t-shirts with his designs on them, just as promotional material, you know. But to his surprise, at the end of the show, he had only sold 24 boards and around 1,000 t-shirts. So in 1984, alongside his friend Frank Sinatra Jr., not the Frank Sinatra Jr., but I know, very ironic, right? They officially shifted brand's focus from surfboards to clothing. And on that day, I'm sure they had no idea that what they were starting would shape an entire generation of youth and inspire a completely new fashion genre. Throughout the 80s, they continued to grow, and in 1987, they expanded to a bigger studio in Irvine, California. There was just something about the designs that caught the attention of surfers, skaters, graffiti kids, artists, and DJs. Their link to hip-hop formed pretty naturally, with DJs and rappers from New York to London falling in love with the brand. And they were doing so well that by 1990, their business was generating $17 million in annual sales. Sean, now on another historic move in 1991, opened his first New York store on Prince Street with James Jeeba as manager. Yeah, that James Jeeba, the guy who would later start the other oldest and most popular streetwear brand, Supreme. They were actually among the first to set up shop in the now thriving Soho district. And by the end of the 90s, Sean's business was a success and was available throughout America. But as the 90s roared by, the brand, like many businesses, began to experience a few issues. Revenue was steady, but profits continued to dwindle. Up until 1995, Frank Sinatra Jr., Sean's partner, worried but still felt understandably safe because Sean Stüssy was still the creative force behind the brand. But that confidence soon evaporated in 1996 when the brand's principal founder announced he was retiring from his involvement with Stüssy, deciding that he wanted to spend more time with his family. Frank spent years surfing with Sean before their business venture, so he understood his partner's decision. But Sean's departure nonetheless.
We're driving up to the Runway Show. Is that the outside of the building? That's a lot of yellow. I mean, look at this. It's crazy, and this is outside. The technical involvement of it is really freaking me out. It's trippy. Like, I was like, wow, what an undertaking. How do you even start something like this? That's why I'm blown away. How are you? You looking sharp? Everything good?
Yeah, good. When I was growing up, I remember buying my first Stüssy t-shirt at the age of 14. I loved the dinosaur t-shirts.
Big and meaty.
Yeah, exactly. They were really good.
I lived in Southern California. I started surfing at 13, 14 years old, and so I don't even know how, but I made my first surfboard.
I always considered Sean an artist because when I saw the advertising in magazines like The Face and ID, they were very strong graphic images that were left behind and still remain to youth and young people an important legacy.
I feel coming back and doing this with you, that in some weird way I feel I'm handing the torch off to the younger crowd, to you. The thing that interested me a lot was that they wanted the flavor of my art, and we talked about a repeat pattern.
Yeah.
But they were going to take it into the couture level of technical stuff.
It lends itself to so many different things. It's beaded, it's embroidered, it's an iCat, it's a jacquard, ink double-faced cashmere, it's in marbling, it's in techniques that are very, very couture. And then even the set. I designed the set myself because I wanted to pay homage to Sean's love of surfing, so we're on the beach going under the wave, which is where you like to be.
Here we are in this massive wave. Models will come be walking down through this wave, and I think that was the variation of color as the wave comes over. The light's hitting the lip as it's over on that side, and it's always darker in the barrel.
Came just before the brand's most difficult years. The following year represented the sharpest drop in the history of Stüssy. Bringing his years of experience in the fashion world, most notably at that point being with Valentino. With fresh new eyes in tow, Stüssy would meander a bit through the Sean-less years. Although it is important to note that they never went into the red and always remained profitable. And once Frank III took over, he took Stüssy international. The legacy Stüssy had set influenced a number of younger designers to follow in her footsteps. Hiroshi Fujihara of Fragment Design named Sean Stüssy as a person who inspired him to create his first brand good enough. Then there was Luca Bonini, founder of Slam Jam, who brought Stüssy to Europe. This introduced a generation of Italian kids to the skate culture of SoCal and the accompanying anti-fashion. James LeBon, fashion photographer, video director, and graphic artist, was also inspired by the brand. And legend has it that he's buried in a coffin full of Stüssy stickers. Russell Simmons also said that he was inspired by Stüssy to start Fat Farm. And Stüssy is credited as being the first ever streetwear brand before it was ever even called streetwear. The international Stüssy tribe movement took the brand to a whole new global level. Stüssy was the first brand to mix in all of the elements of what we today call streetwear: rap, punk, skateboarding, and surfing. From pre-struggles to the modern Stüssy, it seems that it's all about keeping the company's scale under control. Frank Jr. admits that one of the fears his team has is that the brand grows so fast, it becomes difficult to control. Specifically, its connection within the people it sells to. That group involves those who fell in love with the brand all those years ago and now see it as happy nostalgia. But also within that faction is the newer group of highly informed young consumers. And in my opinion, the reason Stüssy has been able to stick around all these years is because they never sold out. Many brands that we covered on this channel eventually sold out to larger companies that didn't have the core values in mind. Stüssy has never done that. They stayed true to the crowd that brought them here all these years, and they never went corporate. But what do you think? Are you a fan of Stüssy? Hit us in the comment section and let us know. And if you made it all this way, and we hoped you liked the video,
then what's this pastiche Chanel logo under their very noses? Interlocked S's, sign of cult designer Sean Stüssy.
Pants and shirts and jackets and hats.
It's basically baseball caps and t-shirts and jeans.
There's some corduroys, yes. There's leather jackets. There's a lot of hats.
A lot of people collect them, you know, like if, say, like, you know, like these, you know, there's 10 colours, and a lot of people will buy every single colour, you know. And then as soon as there's, as soon as there's something new, they get all of them colours. I mean, we sell hundreds of them a week.
We got some hats. No, wait a minute, we don't have hats. Every bin is empty. We're out of hats.
Now the hottest hats in town, a testament to ex-skateboarder Sean Stüssy's snowballing success at satisfying today's logo junkie by offering up a variety of signs in a knowing use of brand awareness.
Here is a Stüssy Tribe hat, wool two-tone hat.
Now it's a uniform in all high schools. I mean, it's basically for surfers who aren't surfers, who want casual, comfortable clothes at an inexpensive price.
The conoscenti are every bit as demanding as Chanel wearers.
Nah, it's a fashion statement.
Oh, people are gonna know. People are gonna know, you know, the cheap shit from the good shit, you know?
And as with Chanel, the visible signs of style have a bonding effect.
Why is it called a tribe? I mean, it could have been a posse, it could have been a crew. It's definitely a group of people. It's an international tribe. It's friends in all these cities. A tribe, I don't know, I just think it was on a much more earthy tip than a posse. You know, this wasn't a big posse of badass people. A tribe was a very organic word. It had a good old world feel to it, and it just kind of stood the test of time. So the IST, the International Stüssy Tribe, has just been kind of a moniker that stuck, and I always liked it along the way, so we kind of use it.
It could also stand for international style trends. Sean Stüssy has noted the world's trade in import and export of national styles, the American casual look now being a virtual uniform for the young of the world.
You know, you go to Europe and there's like a Chippy Chevignon, 20 other people that all make the exact same kind of clothes, which is on an American Western thrift shop tip. I grew up with that since I was 5 years old, and we've worn khakis and white t-shirts. And I go to England, and I go to London, and they're wearing Timberland boots and big puffy down jackets and wool-rich shirts. I mean, we grew up on that. You know, that's like if you lived in America. I mean, you had 501s, and you had Jack Purcell sneakers, and you had Timberland hiking boots and flannel shirts from Penny's. There's just so many angles to it. You got the Married by the Mob, New Jersey, like big-haired East Coast chick, and you got the LA, like, other bigger hair, just as big or bigger blonde hair bimbo. You got the New York City, Spike Lee, homeboy, athletic look. You know, these are all stereotypes, and what's different than the skate kid wearing really long shorts and big Adidas, and every black guy trying to look like Spike Lee? I mean, there's half of the black guys under 20 years old look just like Spike Lee, and there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, everybody's out looking for an identity.
I just think that that whole word streetwear is just not even a thing anymore. It should not even ever be used. It's dead. It's a new thing. To say, oh, streetwear is luxury and this and that, it just is what it is now. When I started in '85, hip-hop was just starting, and we were skateboard surfer guys and kind of doing the same thing. It just was what it was then, too. If you don't mind. I met Kim back in May. I've always known of him, and he's known of me. We've traveled in the same circle of friends. Fraser called and said, hey, do you mind if I give this guy your number? And I went, who is it? He said, Kim Jones. I went, wow, okay, that's cool. I've never met Kim. And so I drove up to Paris. 3 days later, we had lunch, and it was simple and really organic and natural. What they asked me to do was to do a one-color logo, B logo, and a repeated pattern. I did 5 or 6 logos. It just tumbled out of me. Yeah, it was really natural. I did 5 or 6 Bs. And I did 2 repeat patterns. Said, hey, look at this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think? They picked 2 logos, 2 Bs, and they kept both of the repeat patterns. And I think that then was the first spark of the collection. And then it was black line work on white paper, and then it was a really nice collaboration because then Kim and his team did all the colors. So they already had their color palette, and they knew it was in Miami. It was us working together instead of me turning in this thing and them interpreting it. Dior's a surprisingly tight, small family for the size of business. Then you think of Dior as this massive thing. It's not. It's surprisingly small and friendly. If anything, they took me into an area that I hadn't been into as far as technique and couture ways of doing fabric, and it was really nice to take the simple artwork that we always think of Stüssy as, printed t-shirts and all. And that was one of the things that intrigued me, to take what I do or had done feeling and to take it to this level. Yeah, I'm just having as much fun with it as they are. I've been retired for 20 years. It's nice to be back out in the world again. It just happened. And when the stars line up, I just try to make myself available for life to happen. And this is where we're at right now.
The wise designer stays in touch with his market.
It's like derives from music that I listen to, or something that we will see in a club and actually go and do it, or from traveling around. You bring home, you go to New York nightclub and you listen to kind of dance beats. You go to Europe, come home and go surfing in your own hometown for a month, and just by keeping your eyes open and absorbing all this stuff, maybe just this weird breed of it comes out that caters to all these people. And it's kind of a unique tip it's on right now because it is hitting an oddball, eclectic group of people.
The eclectic Stüssy Tribe uniform, with its astute amalgam of anti-mainstream cultural influences, urban West Coast, hip-hop, surf, skateboarding, and the club scene, seduces a worldwide youth market.
I have Japanese customers buy 40 pieces at a time. It's gone. He's going to go all the way.
But does he want to? Is bigger better?
I want to be exclusive, and I do not care about huge sales.
Well, that's what the street wants to hear.
I didn't go to school for marketing, merchandising, or production. We kind of are just learning it as we go along. We spend hardly any money on advertising. I mean, if you spend $2 million on advertising and you don't make any money that year, I'd rather make $2 million and have no advertising.
Fortunately, word of mouth is free.
One guy loves those pairs of jeans and 10 other guys come by, and if they take them home and they're made well and they don't fall apart, and that homeboy's stoked with it, that's better advertising. We're probably good at like pulling the reins on letting it get too big more than anything else, and that's why people have wanted it for a long period of time.
It's not in every store on the block, you know, so people still really want it.
Like it could right now be in a lot more stores and be like a big thing that was doing like double the amount of sales of the stuff, but then, you know, you guys wouldn't be here wanting to talk about it, and all my homeboys wouldn't want to wear it because everybody else did, so there's really a fine line and a natural like growth pattern to it. Frank and I never were like big shot kind of wannabe greedy guys. We've really like tried to like be true to ourselves and like have it from the soul more and not like say yes to a bunch of money.
Say yes to a turnover of around $30 million a year, with marketing every bit as sophisticated as Chanel's. Your customers advertise the product while wearing them, striking that curious balance between extroversion and exclusivity. It's street culture as big business, despite its apparent disingenuity.
Hey, it ain't no market study or anything. I don't know why. You know, it's catches me as off guard as anything. And all I got to do is just, all I can do is to keep doing what I like to do and keeping some like honor in the who you sell it to and not wanting it to be in everybody's store. But then I'm this year's model, and the people aren't going to want it next year. So it's really a, and I mean, where's the textbook on that? You know, how many people do you sell it to, and at what number is it then a sold out deal? I don't know. This is not. There's nothing to judge it on.
Stüssy, probably one of the longest running streetwear brands of all time. With 40 years of fashion influence, in this video I'm going to be going over the history of Stüssy. So Stüssy was founded in 1984 by a guy called Sean Stüssy in California. Stüssy was originally a surfboard business. Sean Stüssy used to draw the iconic Stüssy logo on surfboards and then sell it. 3 years after doing this, he actually come up with some t-shirt designs. He then took these t-shirts to like a local sporting event. The main purpose was to bring more attraction to his surfboards. However, Sean ended up selling 1,000 t-shirts compared to only 24 surfboards. So it was clear to Sean that a lot of people wanted like t-shirts and clothing. So in 1984, Sean Stüssy ended up partnering with Frank Sinatra Jr. to create Stüssy. After a few years, the brand started expanding rapidly. A lot of subcultures would rock the brand as well. Subcultures like streetwear, the hip-hop community, and also the skate culture. And around this time they actually came up with like a squad. It was called the Stüssy Tribe, and this was just a group that shared the same sort of like interests like clothing, skateboarding, and like music. And people that have been in this team later on went to create their own brand. So you had Eddie Cross that went on to create Undefeated, and then also within this team you had James Jebbia that also created Supreme. And in my opinion, that is so crazy to even like know, like, you know, Stüssy actually basically created Supreme. Stüssy sort of had like a business model of creating like low stock for like a specific item, and that would create like more exclusivity for the brand. Not only exclusivity, but also like hype around like the clothing brand itself. And this is what Supreme does very well still to this day. And you know, Stüssy did it first, so I see how James Jebbia sort of took the business model from Stüssy to create Supreme. In 1988, Stüssy began to expand worldwide, selling in places like Japan, Europe, and also Australia. In 1990, Stüssy created a sub-brand called Stüssy Sister. This was a brand's way to sort of like cater towards like the female audience. However, it didn't really stick too long because like I want to say after like 7 years, the brand discontinued it. In the 1990s, this was a very slow decade for the brand. Profits started to slow up, and also the brand's popularity wasn't as big as it used to be. One of the main reasons for this was because fashion trends were sort of changing and Stüssy didn't really adapt to the new environment. In 1996, Sean Stüssy actually left the brand. The reason for this was to spend more time with his family. After Sean's departure from the brand, Frank Sinatra actually brought in like a whole new design team to sort of help them reinvent the brand and sort of help them focus.
In this story we had 2 different prints, both designed by Sean Stüssy. We used a really special technique. There's only one family in the whole world that still know how to make it. They mix up the glucose paste, take a bit of red and a bit of yellow and a bit of blue and mix those together in different quantities to create our own specific colours. One is the psychedelic surf, which is huge waves of rolling letters, and the second is kind of like a fair isle, like stripes of different flowers, lettering and wavy graphics, all very beachy, but all very fluid. So here we can see the stripes where they've put the lines of different colour together. But then if we look below, you can see where they've raked through those stripes to create all of these feathered marble lines. You can see the touch of the hand is really evident. You can really see where they've put the black outline in one single stripe of colour paste. But then in other areas they're really mixed together different blocks of colour to create this almost psychedelic granite effect. So when you want to transfer the colour onto the fabric, you wet the fabric. So it's almost like a wet transfer. The colour flows really easily from the starchy paste onto the silk. I think the best way to really describe this technique is like those sweets you have as a child, but instead of using sugar, we're using a mixture of wax and starch.
Focus on business overseas. Also, within this time in the US, Stüssy actually created like a skate team. This was to go along with the skate sort of trend that was happening in like the 1990s. Nike actually noticed this and they started doing collaborations with Stüssy. The first collaboration they ever did was on a pair of Huaraches. And they also released another shoe that actually went crazy, and this shoe did extremely well, selling out in under 2 days. And this was crazy back in the day because you didn't have the internet, you didn't have like, you couldn't buy stuff online, so you actually had to go to the store. And yeah, 2 days is very quick. So in the 2000s, Stüssy was sort of like the front runner for like skatewear and like streetwear. I want to say the main three brands that was actually like taking over streetwear was probably Stüssy, Supreme and Bape. And also in this time the brand actually blew up in China. It's said to believe that Chinese people found the brand unique and also very creative. Stüssy was still big over in Europe as well, like literally everywhere, like Stüssy was just killing it. I want to say in the 2000s Stüssy sort of hit its peak, and then rolling over to the 2010s Stüssy sort of took a hit. I feel like in the 2010s Stüssy become like very like repetitive and the brand sort of become a little bit stale, and I feel like a lot of people was rocking with like newer brands such as like Off-White and Palace, and Stüssy sort of took a backseat. Don't get me wrong, Stüssy was still popular, but it wasn't really in the conversation of like, a big streetwear brand anymore. I want to say it sort of flew under the radar for the good majority of like the 2010s. Even around the time of like 2017 to like 2019 where like streetwear was like at its peak, like Stüssy was just quiet and like nowhere to be seen really. However, in the 2020s, I feel like Stüssy is sort of like making a comeback, coming out with very unique pieces and very like creative designs, but at the same time sort of staying true to themselves. They have also done a collaboration with Nike again, which absolutely went crazy. Like a lot of people fucked with that. And to be fair, like the 2020s are shaping up to be a very good decade for the brand. However, they still have a long way to go to reach the heights that they did back in the day. But who knows where the brand is going to go next. I mean, they've been relevant for like nearly 40 years now, and 40 years is a very long time. Like you've seen a lot of brands come and go within that time, but Stüssy has sort of stayed relevant. So hopefully they reach the heights that they used to have. Yeah, that's going to be it for today's video. I hope you did enjoy. If you did enjoy, please leave a like, a comment and also subscribe. Until next time, I'm out.